Hey guys, it's Ashen from Ashen Warrior Props, and today we're going to be painting the Dead Space 2 Advanced Suit helmet. For starters, we're going to prime our helmet. I use Plasti-Dip, of course, because Plasti-Dip acts as a great primer and sealant for your props. When you heat it like I've done here, it gives you a nice smooth metallic finish on your props. This is ideal for stuff like Isaac's helmet, which isn't completely clean but has a nice smooth metallic finish, almost like polished aluminum. Now for most of my props with a metallic finish, I like to use a couple coats, around 2 to 3, maybe 4 if I'm feeling generous. I do this to not only make it a little bit more rigid, but make sure everything comes out really smooth and clean looking. Now for about 90% of this paint job I used an airbrush. I know not everybody has an airbrush, so I'm going to provide my personal suggested alternatives for those of you who don't. For starters, we're going to start with our base metallic coat. For this, I'm using All-Clad Lacquer's Chrome for Lexan. Regular Chrome works just as well. I just like for Lexan because it has a little bit extra flexibility. Once you figured out what metallic you want to use, it's time to get on with our first coat. Now for those of you who have used All-Clad Lacquer's Chrome in the past, you do realize it takes a lot, and I mean a lot of coats. I think I applied maybe 4 to 5, 5.5 coats of the All-Clad Lacquer's Chrome before it truly popped the way I wanted it to. Now remember, Chrome is pretty unforgiving. It'll point out any mistakes you've ever made on this build. So make sure you do nice, even coats. Not too thick, not too thin, just nice and even. You'll see now that I've applied quite a few coats, the back end of this build is looking more like polished tool steel than anything else. I'm really pleased with how this turned out. Every time I look at the advanced suit, it looks more and more like different polished metals, and I absolutely love it. So I had to make sure with each coat I got closer and closer towards the metallic color I wanted. Now the faceplate of Isaac's helmet also has a metallic finish on the 2 detail plates. These to me looked a lot like anodized aluminum, so what I did was I went a little bit heavier and made sure it came out a lighter color with my chrome. Once it's done, it should have a metallic shine, kind of like this. Next, we're moving on to the orange details on the front and back of the helmet. Now, orange is a difficult color to begin with, but when airbrushing it, you have to make sure you're doing very thin coats and building them up. It took me about 6 tries to actually get this color correct. I just kept going way too heavy, way too fast, and it gooped up and dripped all over the place. Once I had my orange loaded up, you'll see every time I make a pass, you can barely see where the orange actually sticks. Like I said, a lot of passes, very thin, very annoying. Here I'm on like the 4th coat and it's finally starting to pop the way I want it to. Again, I had to be very careful and a lot of do-overs on this section of the paint job. On the back of the helmet, in between the 2 strips, there's this little section that's more of an ochre, bronzy color. I ended up having to mix quite a few to get the color I wanted, but by definition, it's the color of ochre. To get the color, I mixed some of the All-Clad Lacquer's Chrome, some red, and some yellow. Now we're moving to that iconic crisp blue color on the front of the helmet. This part was actually my favorite to do. The mixture I used was almost a 60-40 mixture of the All-Clad Lacquer's Chrome and a royal blue. Now because of how dark the blue was, it still came out really blue but had a really nice undertone that had a really nice metallic shine to it. For this section again, you have to remember that the first few coats are going to be barely visible, but trust me, they're there. You'll see as the video progresses how each section, when I make passes, the blue shows up more and more and more. Once you've gone about 3 to 4 coats on the faceplate, you need to come to the back side, and I did pretty much just the royal blue color on these strips in the back. They're supposed to be a little bit darker than the faceplate, so it's okay to go a little heavy on these, but not too heavy. You don't want it to be droopy. Once the coats have mostly dried, I went back over with a light dusting of the chrome just to make it pop a little bit, but this muted blue color is absolutely phenomenal once you've achieved it. Next, I went to the center of each piece to hit it with some of this opaque blue to make the middles look like they've still maintained their original colors while leaving the outsides looking like they've seen a little bit of wear. For me personally, I like to have some spots where the metallic shines through a lot and some where it doesn't. This makes it look like it's got a little bit of just based wear and tear. Once everything's dry and you've released the prop from its tape overlords, it should look something like this. Next, as we get closer to the end of this paint job, we've got the little detail tabs on the side of the faceplate. For these, I just use a satin black from Craftsmart. Now, I used a simple dry brushing technique to make sure everything turned out the way I wanted it to. It's always important to remember when applying the dry brushing technique, you go over the section several times with several coats just to make sure you get the finish you want. Once you've gotten everything how you want it, it's time to move on to weathering this prop. This is my favorite part of any build. I simply use rub and buff with an old dry brush. You can easily use your hands, but I like the texture you get when you use a brush. Now, in-game, Isaac has chip damage and paint damage around the edges of all the blue sections and orange sections of his helmet. I like visiting the outer edges and the corners with the brush to make sure everything looks like it's seen just a little bit of exterior wear. Isaac, after all, has been beaten up by necromorphs and flung out into space more times than we can count. I like to base most of my rub and buff chip damage off of what part of the armor would see the most amount of action. For me, this is always the edges, because when you look closely, most times when something takes damage, it's on the outer sides of something. Once you're done with the faceplate, we're going to move on to this orange detail section. Hit the rivets with some rub and buff just to make them pop a little bit more. Then hit the edges and the corners just like we did on the front side. Once that's done, I'm going to apply a similar technique using black acrylic paint that I'm going to dry brush onto the silver portions. This is going to act as damage similar to what we did with the blue and the orange, but on the silver parts so they pop a little bit. The black helps simulate dust, grime, dried blood, whatever you want it to be. The black dry brushing technique with acrylic paint can pretty much pull it off. Now, typically with a prop like this, I'll do an acrylic black wash or maybe shoe polish, but with this, I was very pleased with how the wear and tear came out, so I didn't feel the need to do a black wash at all. After you've applied your wear and tear, you're pretty much done with this paint job.
Alright, and there we have it, the fully painted Dead Space 2 Advanced Suit Helmet. Remember, if you enjoyed, to drop a like, leave a comment, and follow my social media pages. I'll leave a link to each one of those in my description. If you stick around for about the next 5 minutes, we're going to be doing a full prop breakdown and overview, which idea was suggested to us by one of our Instagram followers. Hey guys, if you stuck around, we're going to do a quick overview and quick questionnaire from the build. This idea was brought to me by one of my Instagram followers, whose name slips my mind. Anyway, so he had the idea of, at the end or towards the finish of a build, do a quick overview, what you liked, didn't like, and do questions from a random user. So I had a random follower submit me questions about the build. I just generic questions to see what I could talk about a little bit more. So we'll hop right into that, and I'll give my opinions as we go on. All right, so question one was, how did you get the metallic finish? Covered it in the video, but I didn't talk a whole lot about it. Again, I used the All-Clad Lacquers Chrome for Lexan, which, again, it's very something you have to, it's acquired taste, just because you can't see it like on the first two passes. Like I did it over and over and over and over again, and I was like, why in the hell isn't it showing up? And then about the third pass, it really popped, and I'm like, oh, wow, that's really cool. And once we got towards the end, you get this really cool, polished tool steel kind of look, which I absolutely adored. I mean, it's shiny enough to where you can see the Christmas lights from where I am bouncing off of it, which I absolutely adore. Because finding a metallic paint for foam is quite difficult sometimes. So the metallic finish for the back was just patience and get it to where I like it. Up here, it looked to me in like the in-game footage, these strips were like polished aluminum, or anodized aluminum rather. So for those, I just did heavier coats of it. And then for the rest, everything just has a metallic undercoat, then with a light blue, yellow, or orange, or black dusted right over it, or mixed into the mixture as well. But overall, very happy with how the paint job came out. It's one of my favorite paint jobs of anything I've ever done, especially compared to my original, if I can get it out, not my original, but one of the crappier versions I made. Not happy with this one at all. This one will be going away. All right, next question was, how did you weather it? Again, minor detail I covered in the video, but gives me a chance to explain it a little bit more. Most of it was just dry brushing techniques with silver rub and buff and black acrylic that I dry brushed on there. Again, I mentioned this in the video as well. I traditionally do a acrylic or shoe polish black wash to get the dust, dirt, and grime into every corner. But with the look I was going for, it was less dust and grimy and more wear with a little bit of dust. That's why, again, like on all the corners, I want it to look like they'd been chipped, or they just had heat like hitting it and going off of it. Very just chipped damage. Dusting I did with some black on the corners of the silver and on the orange, and I did some on the little camera piece or whatever it's called. So weathering on this one was very similar to what I normally do, just minus the black wash. How did you set up the electronics? The electronics were probably the biggest pain in the ass outside of the faceplate build, just because it's a very fine balance. In the other builds of this helmet I've done, it's either going straight into my eyes or you can't see, and it's a huge pain to deal with. So what I ended up doing was I found side-mounted LEDs, which are really awesome for something like this, because rather than having an LED strip that lays flat and is glaring right into your eyes, these project directly onto your acrylic, and of course disperse really well. The camera doesn't pick up the center as well, but it's a very even glow across the entire thing, which I absolutely love. So I use side-mounted LEDs in there, and then I simply used a DC power adapter to go into a 12-volt battery supply. I got a rechargeable one. I think this does 18,000 milliamps, a number that involves 18, equals up to will power the entire suit when it's done for up to 18 hours, which I'm super happy about. It's big, not too big. It's gonna sit in that little chest plate thing, and wires are gonna run inside the suit. So overall, a simple electronic build, but a pain in the ass to get it mounted. Next question. So, next question is, where did you get the electronics? So I got mine. I customized them a lot, but I bought the originals from Diode Dynamics. They specialize in automotive lighting, custom automotive lighting. Everything they have runs on 12 volts, so if you buy anything from them, expect it to run off a 12-volt battery supply. Very high quality stuff, 5 stars every time, 120%, 10 out of 10 IGN. So Diode Dynamics is my go-to for all of my lights. In fact, all of my strips and my automotive halos that are going into this whole suit are from Diode Dynamics. A lot of them they're all highly customizable, and I've already gone through and customized all mine to my liking. All of them are very customizable to the colors. They all come with RGB switches and controllers that you can do from a Bluetooth controller. It's very nice stuff. Pretty inexpensive, very mid-ground in terms of price. But yeah, where did I get them? Diode Dynamics. All right. And next, how do I know if your template will fit my head? That is something I probably should have covered in my first video. The size is scaled to my head, which is 24 inches. 24 inches around. I can't think of the math off the top of my head. Math major over here. But with a 24-inch head, this fits perfectly. If you have 22-inch head, you're going to do math and then shrink it on a percentage. But yeah, there's the quick answer. It'll fit your head perfectly, bit right out of the template if your head is 24 inches around. I had a lot of sizing issues with my first few. The first few were very tight, and like my chin poked out of the bottom of them. Man, I'm looking at these, comparing the shine. Like this, not like, it was a great first build. I'm very happy with this. This is not going anywhere anytime soon. I absolutely adore it. It's 100% game accurate, and I love it. Where was I? I lost myself. Yeah, long story short, it will fit your head if it's 24 inches around. Do the math for what percentage. If you go vary in between like 1 or 2 inches, just do the math. And then when you put it into Adobe, what? Smaller with padding. Yes, that was a good idea. That's Bug just suggested adding a couple. If it's too big but you like how it looks, you can add some. I don't have any 10 millimeter over here. You can just stack some 10 millimeter on top and kind of stack it until it works. Break it until it works. That's the Ashen Warrior Props motto. And final question: can you make me one? No. No. I love making this, but now that I've made it about 4 times, I don't want to look at another one of these for at least a month. But no, I will absolutely. If somebody genuinely wants me to make them one, we can negotiate that privately. Yeah, I'm absolutely down to make it again, but not for a time being. Are you asking for a high five? What do you? Oh yeah, what's your question?
What's very challenging? What was the challenging part for you?
The most challenging part? The most challenging part? Most challenging part, not losing my patience with the faceplate. Not necessarily with the exterior of the faceplate, but the interior when you're lining the acrylic. I used 16th inch acrylic because it bends really well. And I just wanted something thinner so it's not taking up a whole lot of headroom. And I swear to God, we went to, what was that? Hobby Lobby. We went to Hobby Lobby 4 times before I stopped breaking acrylic over this thing. It was absolutely the biggest pain in the ass I've ever experienced with plastic. I broke 4 whole, like, big sheets of acrylic too before I got it right. yeah, I'm a moron, but I just got frustrated with it. At some point, maybe I'll do a video on how to properly bend acrylic without losing your temper.
Because the challenging part is lining it all up together on the helmet.
Yes, the challenging part, she was just telling me. The challenging part is lining it up all together on the helmet. Again, in the previous video you saw us, we just straight pinned, as I've been told. Straight pinned it, marked where it goes, contact cement, and flex taped it on there. But either way, I guess that's it. Thank you guys so very much. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please leave a like, comment something, tell me what you want to see from the channel. Go to my Instagram. I'm more active there. I respond to pretty much anybody within an hour on Instagram. So if you want to keep in contact with me, talk about nerd stuff, shop stuff, Dead Space, Dark Souls, whatever, hit me up on Instagram. Thank you guys so very much. See you around.